Hello, welcome to Meditation Live. Today's discussion is on self acceptance. I'm a host here at Meditation Live. My name is Stefan Ravalli. I'm also the host of the Surf Conscious podcast and a meditation mindfulness teacher. And I am joined today by Selena. Lael, our expert coach, is going to be guiding us through this discussion on this topic. Hello, Selena.
Hello, welcome everyone. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I am a yoga and meditation instructor, a transformational coach, and an awakened life teacher, and always working on self acceptance. So, welcome everyone.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? And just when we think we got there, there's layers and layers to move through. So excited about this topic today. Before we begin, guys, I do recommend using the interactive features that are available to you to engage with today's discussion. There's a Q&A box and a chat box. You can post your questions or comments down there about today's topic or put up your hand and we can enable your mic and you can speak directly to us. And just a note that these features are only available on the app, which you can get at the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. They're not on YouTube. We're glad to see you. We wish we could talk to you, but interactivity is only on the app. Okay. Before we kick off, would you like to settle us into a practice today, Selena?
Sounds great. Okay, let's just take a moment with the eyes open to become aware of how the body is feeling. Just notice the sensation from the feet up to the head, and then close the eyes and start to sense what's happening inside. We have a tendency to immediately accept or reject all of life's experiences. We immediately label things as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, and we're in this constant push and pull of these two inside of ourselves. So, in this moment, can we just be with what's happening without needing to label what we're feeling in the body as good or bad, even as pleasant or unpleasant? Can we just start to be with what sensations are here? Feel the breath, maybe feel the pulse. Without this constant need to make ourselves or life different, can we just be here right now, feeling, breathing? And start to notice the areas of the body that are making contact with the support beneath you, maybe behind you. And again, without thinking about it, without judging, just notice the feeling of your body being supported. Now let's take a deep breath in. Exhale through the mouth. And then we'll open the eyes. Welcome back.
Thank you for that, Selena. And hello to those of you just joining us. Hello, Elena. Irisy, Julie, Katie, Ryan, Samira. Great to see some familiar and friendly faces. And great to talk about self-acceptance today with you, Selena. What can you say about it to kind of give people an idea of what it looks like to be truly accepting of yourself?
Well, the first thing that I can say is that it is an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey. And we have to truly move into self-acceptance. I think in some ways we have to set aside our beliefs about who we think we're supposed to be. and the way life is supposed to be. We have these big beliefs about life and the world and about ourselves. And if we don't live up to those, or if life lets us down, we're in this constant state of rejection, judgment, disappointment. So, beginning to let go of the pressure we put on ourselves to be someone that we think we're supposed to be, and to start to explore who we really are, to start to inquire, okay, I think I'm supposed to like this thing because it's what I've known about myself, but I don't like it anymore. Okay, inquire, what would my life be like? Who would I be if I allowed myself to try something different? So I think it's about letting go of our preconceived notions, and then of course moving into a space of compassion. It always boils down to compassion, because otherwise we live in a constant state of judgment. Constant. It's what we do all day long. So the brain is constantly doing. I agree with you, I don't agree with you. This is what the mind is doing. Every time someone is speaking, whether or not you realize that, your mind is going, agree, disagree, like, and this is what we do with ourselves constantly. So to take a breath, to inquire, to be aware, to question, to allow. That's all very vague, but we'll get into more specifics.
Yeah, and in terms of what self-acceptance allows you to be, it sounds like it's more than just, being fine with where you are. It seems like it primes you to be able to evolve and leap into the unknown as well, as you were saying.
Definitely.
I'm curious how it does that. What's at stake when we are sort of trying something new that normally scares us? How does not being accepting of ourselves get in the way?
Hmm. Well, we oftentimes stop ourselves before we even try. If we're not accepting of who we are, or if we're judging ourselves, or if I'm living inside of the belief that I'm not enough, or I don't know enough, or I'm not strong enough, or I'm not courageous enough, then it limits me from even doing the things that I want to do. It limits me from taking risks, from seeing what's possible, because I'm living inside of the fear that I won't be something that I would like to be. Now, here's where the topic of self acceptance can take an interesting turn. When I ask you to feel something, let's say you feel sadness or you feel anger, don't you experience it as, I'm feeling this, I'm angry, I'm sad right now? Or if you're really joyful today, I'm joyful, right? We identify our emotions as who we are. When I ask you how your body is today, you'll say, I'm feeling, right? I'm feeling achy. I'm feeling energized. I'm feeling this weird pain in my knee. We identify with ourselves as the body. I could go on and on. The thoughts, right? Same thing. What's going on for you? Well, this is the way it is, and it's just a thought. So, the way that self acceptance can take this different perspective is true self acceptance begins when we realize that we are not who we think we are. If I constantly see myself as this physical body, which my mind can always find something wrong with, I can always find something to improve with my body. If I feel, if I believe that the totality of who I am is this body, I will constantly be in conflict with it. But when I begin to consider that I am more than this body, and I am more than these emotions, and I am more than the mind, I have access to something that is so much greater than all of my petty judgments about myself, all of my petty judgments about others. I have access to an awareness that there is, you could call it a true self, or a deep place of wisdom, or a place of center, or a light, however you imagine the essence of who you really are to be. When we really connect with that, self acceptance, it naturally arises, because we're not caught in the cycle of all of these ridiculous small judgments that we engage in constantly all day long. We know ourselves beyond these limited experiences. That's a whole other take on it. That's why I said it's an interesting turn. So it's another perspective that we can look at it from.
That is a really interesting proposition, that it's easier to own who you are if you, in a way, disown it, or just we're talking about disown the identity of it and say, like, I'm not reducible to these things. Therefore I can own them, no problem, because they're not the be all end all. I guess that's what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah.
Cool. Fascinating. All right, let's crack into this. Just a reminder, guys, that this is an interactive panel. So if switches are kicking on in your head like they are in mine, and you want to ask questions about this very fascinating topic, then definitely use those areas to make a contribution. And I've got a question for you. What do you love about yourself? What's easy to accept? We'll start there. That's an interesting thing to talk about. And Samira's got a question here that we'll throw in to the mix. It's a good one. It's about frustration. It's one I know well. How do we deal with frustration? It must have to do with self acceptance.
You should just get really mad about it. If you're feeling frustrated, get really mad that you're feeling
Oh,
frustrated.
sweet. I'm so good at dealing with frustration then. Great.
uh, the short answer here is the same invitation that I have when it comes to any emotional experience. And this is also a very powerful way to practice self-acceptance, because so much of what we reject is what we feel, right? So when we learn how to manage our emotional state, when we learn to evolve emotionally, it makes everything that we're engaged in easier, especially self-acceptance. So what I do is I go into my body and I find where that frustration is. Maybe I just, there's something I'm not saying to someone and I feel it in my throat like I'm choking. Or maybe it's this knot in my stomach. Or maybe I feel it in my whole body, just like this fire in my body. I go inside. Maybe I need to take a few deep breaths to kind of get myself to even close my eyes because I'm so frustrated. That's okay. When I'm ready, I go inside. I feel where this frustration is. And then that part of my mind that's like, oh, I'm so frustrated because I say, okay, what if? Again, this is where inquiry is so powerful. We question our thoughts to know that it's not who we are. What if this thought that I'm having about why I'm so frustrated isn't true? Or if it is, what if it's not the whole story? And so I just set that aside. I say, okay, for this moment, I'm not going to obsess over the thought. I'm just going to feel the body. And so that's what I do. I breathe deeply into that sensation inside where I'm feeling choked up or tight or tense, whatever it is. And I stop thinking about why I'm frustrated. I just give myself permission to feel. And I breathe and I feel and I breathe and I feel. And every time, what this does is it allows the feeling, the frustration, the tension I'm holding to dissipate. And if I really am present with myself and not feeding my mind with a story about frustration, it always passes. I always find myself back at a place of calm or acceptance. But it's when I'm believing the story about myself or somebody else that I'm trapped. I'm trapped inside of that feeling. So that's part of how I would work with
All right. Yeah. Powerful tools to separate, I guess, the story from the feeling, and just be able to feel it's more fluid and doesn't, I guess, self mechanize and exaggerate, right?
it. Exactly. It's a hamster wheel. If I think about why I'm frustrated, no, let's say all of a sudden I just feel frustrated. And then my mind says, "Oh, I feel so frustrated because you said that to me." And then I feel frustrated and then I think about the story and it goes like this, dun, 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 and I never get off the wheel. I think about it, I feel it. I feel it, I think about it. Bam, 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 bam. This constant feedback loop. But if I take the story out of it and I just let myself feel it, it dissipates. I get off the wheel. I have a chance to breathe and come back to neutral.
Right. And I guess if you like really dig into the story, it digs the identity aspect of it deeper into the mind if you're indulging
Totally.
it like that, right?
These are my emotions. These are my thoughts. This is what it is. Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Some comments popping up here from Ryan.
Great.
He loves that he cares about others. Then he goes, who else wants to share? I love that. Actually, call to action, everyone. Share what you love about yourself today. Loves that he cares about others. I do too, except I often don't love when that shuts off because it does sometimes if I get wrapped up in myself, which I guess is another self acceptance thing. Be fine when I'm not this agent of service that I think I should be all the time, you know?
Yeah, just being with what is arising. There it's important. Sometimes it's important to just be with ourselves. Sometimes we need to navigate things that we're feeling. We're not always available as the most altruistic version of ourselves. And not only that, but we are always going to have moments to evolve. We are always going to have moments where we could have done better. The other day, I had a brief conflict with someone where we just had a, kind of a sharp conversation. Some intense energy was in the conversation. And as much as I felt like it was, me who deserved an apology and me who felt justified, I had to really say, okay, you know, what was going on for this person? And it totally changed it for me. I was able to go into that place where I felt like, oh man, I could have done better in that conversation. I could have been more kind. I could have watched my words more carefully, spoken with more awareness. And there was that initial feeling of like, oh, I did something really bad. I wish I hadn't. And then that's that place to just come into forgiveness. And I think that's a key component of self-acceptance is forgiveness. We hold ourselves to these impossible standards. Impossible standards, my friends. Human emotion makes us do so many things. And yes, we can master emotion more and we can evolve emotionally and become less reactive, but it still makes us do wild things sometimes. So forgiveness has to be part, it's an intrinsic part of self acceptance.
All right. And Irisy says the same thing happened to them yesterday. And Elena says, I love my loyalty about herself. And Katie says, these practices allow me to get out of my own way, seeing what is right now instead of what should be.
Mm, right, right.
So I have a question about kind of growth and transformation since we're talking about that now, those opportunities to become better versions of ourselves. And life is full of them. And you also have to have that motivation to improve and that readiness to see what needs improvement. How do you always be aware of what needs improvement in yourself while remaining accepting of yourself as you are?
Well, I think sometimes it's a dance. Sometimes it's a dance of becoming aware of the improvement by way of seeing how we're not being self accepting. And by way of seeing that we're not being accepting of ourselves, we have the opportunity to choose to be more accepting. So sometimes we have to kind of trip over that again and again and again before we can catch it. It's like, I won't use an analogy. I'm really good at using terrible analogies. But for example, if there's someone in my life, my dad, for example, we love each other so much and we're so much alike that it's easy for us to have conflict sometimes. So let's say that I keep speaking to him in a way that I wish I hadn't. I keep saying something and I wish I had been more compassionate or I wish I had been more thoughtful. And every time I have to say, okay, I did it again. Okay, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best not to do it again next time. But let's say I keep catching it after the thought. The more that I become aware of the tendency to do this thing, this action, this way of being that I wish I had not done, the more I'm aware of that, the more I have the chance to actually be aware of it before it happens next time. So I think the first step is just the desire to be the kindest, most integrous, best version of ourselves. And if that is something that we're truly committed to, then we will either have or cultivate the courage to look at ourselves in these ways, because so often our inability to forgive ourselves isn't because, Well, I'll just say it's because we're actually so hard on ourselves because we're afraid of the consequences. Where it's this, again, I think we just spoke about this in our last session. We have this internalized judgmental parent, this part of the psyche. And just imagine the most judgmental parental or guardian figure in your life, and their judgments internalized in your mind. We take that on. So we all have something like that in our psyche. And it's kind of like a protection mechanism. So when I know I'm getting a little far out here, but the idea is that when we start to meet that voice inside of our own head with a sense of awareness, with kindness, with forgiveness, things start to shift. And it may take, again, doing something that you'd rather not do a handful of times until you really have the awareness beforehand not to engage in it.
Excellent. I thought that was all so well as illustrated. You can be very self-accepting about the examples you give, actually, because they're great. So, actually, I have a question to you and everyone. Let's start with everyone. Firstly, Samira says, I love my curly gold hair. I can do anything with it. I'm grateful for it, and
Mm,
loves her compassion that she can have for others.
I love that.
And I kind of want to raise the stakes a bit, though. Can you guys think about qualities in yourself that are less easy to love, that you can love?
Mm.
And what's what has shaggy charm within you? And I guess I have a question for you about that, Selena, because you seem like really, grounded in yourself, really, really cool with yourself. And I want to know what shifts you've made in your life from, difficulties you were having, stuff you were struggling to accept. Uh, and how did it maybe turn out to be a boon or a strength in your life?
Ah, wow. Well, just like I imagine most of us, if not all of us, I have dealt with a lack of self acceptance my entire life, whether it was related to something I did or the body or something I said. My entire life, I've navigated those feelings of, oh, I wish something was different or I wish I had been different. But I'll come back to the question that you asked everyone, something that's more difficult to love inside of yourself. One of the qualities that has caused the maybe the most conflict in my different types of relationships in my life has been the need for control. And for a long time, I wasn't even aware of the need for control. Now, on the flip side of control, there's leadership. Not meaning controlling people by leading, but there is a certain level of embodiment or assuredness that can come with control sometimes. So there are some positive aspects of control, not in the sense of trying to control others, but of having the quality of being able to step up and have foresight. So those are different things, but they've come from the same stem. So, what I want to say to this, and maybe I'm not answering your question directly, but I'm speaking to the question that you asked all of us. What is something that's more difficult to accept? One of the ways that we can really practice self acceptance is to acknowledge where these patterns and habits have come from. So, for example, I'm aware that maybe I'm a natural leader. Maybe that's my natural personality. I'm innovative, I have ideas. It's easy for me to just step up and say, hey, let's go. But at some point, that turned into the energy of control, which is not as graceful. It's not the true embodiment of being a leader. So when I go back and I look, I see, okay, well, this pattern of control came from not feeling safe. This pattern of control came from things that happened in my childhood that left me not feeling safe in the world. And so I started to try to control my environment so that I felt safe inside of it. And of course, this cultivates a feeling of compassion inside of me rather than just being like, oh, Selena, you're a horrible person. You were controlling again. I can say, wow, okay, I can see that there's something inside of me that's not feeling safe. There's something that doesn't feel safe. And I can have kindness for that part of me. And rather than beating myself up for being controlling, I can have compassion. I can have compassion for that little girl inside of me, the adult inside of me, and say, how can I shift this next time? How can I be more aware of it next time? So I invite all of us right now in this moment, become aware of some pattern inside of you that you do that you wish you didn't, some behavior. Take a breath, and then just imagine, where did this come from? Maybe somebody bullied you. Maybe you got your heart broken. Maybe you were really nervous as a child in a school play, and you did something that made everyone laugh. That all of our behaviors, they are rooted in something. And whether or not you're able to pinpoint it right now, I invite you to look for it and then find the kindness and compassion that is so deserved for where this pattern is stemming from.
All right. Love it. And we have to wrap up shortly. We're already at 25 minutes. Anyone that's got to go, definitely you can be on your way, even though we can keep getting deeper into this topic. I'll pass things over to you in a sec to close things off now. But I just want to read a few more comments rolling in about aspects of yourself that require more work to accept but are ultimately lovable. Ryan Ferber says it's his sensitivity, which can be a superpower, but I guess can need some reconciling with sometimes. Irisy says their habit of worrying. Katie says my tendency to speak without thinking. And yeah, that's it.
Great. So my question for all of you is whether or not you can pinpoint some initiation, some beginning point for this pattern. Can you be kind to yourself right now for this habit? Can you be forgiving of yourself right now? Not because you've done something to deserve forgiveness, but because you are inherently forgivable. It is your birthright to deserve goodness. You do deserve goodness naturally. So you need to take a moment and let it be okay. And know that just like every other human being, you're doing your best. We're all in this together. We're all working out our patterns and behaviors and emotions. Anything else from your end before we complete?
That's it. I guess what came up for me was taking the conditions off of the self acceptance, because I guess we're conditioned to require conditions, to say, I'll accept myself when I'm here, when I'm here, when I'm here. And you've touched on this, but you've definitely returned to it and emphasized it now, of us always needing reasons to, and that just creates more reasons not to accept ourselves, right?
Exactly. Exactly. What if you don't need any excuse or any reason to be kind to yourself right now? That's it. That's it.
All right. Wonderful discussion today. Thank you. Any other way you want to close things off? Do you want to leave us with a quick practice to pull everything together?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's close the eyes and breathe. And then find a place inside. You are such a beautiful, complex being with so many aspects to you. There are so many aspects of you that you haven't even uncovered yet, of your beauty, your creativity, your power. There's so much about you that you don't even know yet. There's so much inside of you. So within that, just become aware of any discomfort that might be present in the body. Maybe an uncomfortable emotion is arising. Maybe you find yourself arguing in your mind. Maybe you're not agreeing with what I'm saying. Whatever is happening inside, find one area to focus on where there's some kind of resistance or discomfort. And then notice that there is probably a story connected to it. Oh, I feel this way because. And for right now, I invite you to step off of that hamster wheel. And if you're not familiar with that, what a hamster is, it's a small, cute rodent that people keep as pets, and they run around over and over and over. So imagine that you're allowing that story to just fall to the side and instead just feel what's happening inside, whether it's a physical sensation in the body or it's an emotional sensation, maybe it's in the mind. Just take some breaths into that and just allow it to be. Just be. Continue to breathe into these sensations. And start to use the power of your mind rather than your mind thinking for you right now. Consciously choose to set aside the thoughts and the stories to be with what is. And for the next few breaths, can you really just allow whatever you're feeling to be here? Whether it's an uplifting feeling or an uncomfortable feeling. And then slowly begin to move the body and deepen the breath. When you're ready, open the eyes and know that this very simple practice is always available to us. Whenever we are feeling that resistance inside, whether we're judging ourselves for the body, we're judging something we've done, we're judging something we're feeling, we can use this practice to go inside and be with what is. We don't always, the mind is usually trying to think us out of feeling, right? Oh, I got to figure out how to get out of this feeling, how to make this feeling go away. We need to feel to release. And that sense of feeling will often relieve whatever emotional tension is there, causing us to be so hard on ourselves. And then we can refocus, become aware, and make conscious choices to be more kind, compassionate, and forgiving. Thank you all so much. Have a fantastic weekend with great love.